Tony, would you please call roll?
Camus,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Arenas,
Here.
Jones,
Present.
Liccardo.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go right to item 1, which is a review of the agenda. I'm sorry, A2, I should say, which is a review of the draft agenda for December 1st.
Mayor, just really quickly, point of order. Tony, can you let Nora Freeman in the meeting? She's stuck in the waiting room.
Let's not kick out the lawyers. Okay. Thanks, Tony. Okay, so we'll hear if there are any changes to the agenda starting in pages 5 or 6. Any changes on pages 7 and 8? Changes on 9 and 10. Any changes on 11 and 12? Changes on pages 13 and 14. And 15 and 16 finally. Okay, let's go to the public. Is there any comment from the public on item 1B, Mr. Beekman?
Hi, thank you. You have your yearly approval of UASI money. You know, some of this money is going to be going to the Shot Spotter program. I've tried to say, you know, I find the Shot Spotter program overrated, but I understand you have needs and concerns for the Cadillac area, and you've had public meetings about that. Thank you. There's Axon equipment, you know, that's a big eyesore, you know, a big red flag that, you know, that issue is coming up of Axon use of body cameras and tasers. And, you know, that's an issue that it's going to be coming up, creeping up on you guys. I think people are pretty tired of Axon controlling this whole process. And we really need to question our future of body cameras and how it can be more accessible to the public. And not only that, what are the safety issues and how are those safety issues for police officers? How is that inhibiting better policing and better community practices of sustainability? All of that has to be really considered in the next 5 years. That's what we're going to be going through. So I thought I'd warn you now. And the last item is about 3 in a series about child trafficking, I guess, issues. And, you know, it sounds really important and meaningful, and I think we can all agree in its need, but, you know, that's data collection stuff that really starts to, inevitably starts to be used for different purposes that really has to be questioned. And just to make yourselves mindful of that and aware of that at this time, that's the job of the public comment, I guess. So thank you. And I think that's about all for myself on this item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the agenda for December 1st.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Camus. Are there any questions or comments? All right, let's vote.
Camus,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Arenas,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Liccardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going on to item D1, which is the city budget calendar and budget study session schedule. On this item D1, we'll see if there are any comments from the public. Mr. Beekman?
Hi, I went to the retirement planning board ideas for police and for police and workers, federated workers. It was about a few weeks ago, and I don't want to make a big deal about it, but it was nicely spoken about by one of the main researchers that the ideas of inflation for retirement issues may not be so, it may not play into their formulas in the next year. And that got me thinking that COLA budget ideas for the POA, that San Francisco is seriously going through at this time, maybe that's a way how to address POA COLA issues in San Jose with budget issues for the next year. I hope this is applicable. Budget issues. I would also like to thank the mayor for, stating clearly we may have some serious foreclosure issues and overall recession issues into next year. That federal funding help is important at this time and needed to be considered. And and I've been saying all fall how we need to be open to that and open to state funding mechanisms that have been trying to build and prepare for what COVID's going to be for the next few years. And so that funding is really needed and helpful. And I think it just can create a harmony for our community and better address, the tenant issues that are going to be coming up next year. That good luck in your efforts, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Motion to
All right.
approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, Lee, just to put on your radar, I know one thing Nick is talking to Jim about is about the possibility of us getting some preliminary forecast prior to the mid-year. I know we'll be voting on mid-year, according to this, on February 9th. And I know a 5-year forecast won't be possible until later that month. And I know we're often waiting for the sales tax, but even to get a 2-year projection would be really helpful to have before the council starts talking about what they're going to do with money at mid-year. I think it would be important for us to have sort of an eyes wide open approach to what's coming. And so we'll keep working with your office to see if that can happen in some form, even if it is something that's filled with asterisks, understanding that there are going to be some assumptions involved in all of that, as there always are.
Yeah, and I am aware of that conversation, and I don't think there's nothing prohibiting us from revising the budget schedule to accommodate that if we're able to pull that off for you earlier on in the year.
Okay, thanks. I think that'd be great, really helpful for the council. All right, on the motion then, let's vote.
Amos,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Arenas, Arenas.
Yes.
Thank you. Jones,
Yes.
Ricardo.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Item E is the public record.
Motion to note and file. Second.
Okay, lots of motions, 1 second. Mr. Beekman.
Thank you.
Mr. Beekman, this is regarding the public record. Did we just lose you?
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay, I think we lost him. All right, Mr. Beekman will be happy to take up. Well, no, you're still with us. Okay, well, we'll definitely listen to you on the next one. Okay, on the motion, let's vote.
Amos,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Arenas,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Ricardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, G1 is the consent calendar.
Motion to approve consent.
Second.
Camus,
Let me just
Aye.
check. I think, Mr. Beekman, you have your hand up. Are you able to speak?
are you-
I'm
Mr.
not.
Beekman,
I'm
we're
I'm
unable
not
to.
seeing,
I'm not seeing.
yeah, this is Tony, the clerk. I'm not seeing his name or his hand up. So I don't know if your computer's frozen showing him.
It's possible, but everybody else is moving on my computer, and I see him at the bottom of the participants.
Me
just before
too.
you
I
click
see
on
him too.
people.
I see
Really?
him on my screen.
Yeah,
I must be the one who's frozen.
I'm glad, because sometimes people think I'm drinking. All right. Well, we're not able to hear Mr. Beekman, so we'll move forward and come back to him when he's able to get his device to function. Let's vote.
Camus,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Arenas,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Ricardo.
Aye. All right.
Hello, this is Blair Beekman here. Sorry, when did I get cut off? Sorry.
We weren't able to hear you at all, Mr. Beekman. I think it was right at the very beginning. Oh, I think we've got a transmission issue. It looks like,
Okay, I'm seeing him now, Mayor. I can allow him to speak if you'd like.
please do.
Thanks a lot for letting me go again. I don't know what just happened, but thanks. This will be under 2 minutes. There is a future possible where the inventiveness of technology can work hand in hand with organized, responsible guidelines and open public policies. These concepts do not have to work in mutually exclusive terms. With new 4G and 5G that will also include much surveillance and data collection tech, Provision Zero and neighborhood safety needs, open, accountable public policies can help with responsibility, better reasoning, and more open democratic practices that can help better define how to bridge the digital divide, and more generally work towards pre-COVID-19 ideas of long-term community harmony, sustainability, and ideas of peace, and can work well with important new questions of demilitarization and how to begin to reduce the prison military industrial state. I really hope we can all line up and get it together and know how to better speak about important new KSI statistics that use the good concepts of equity, but that may enlarge KSI numbers when comparing to previous years. To conclude, as I've been trying to politely offer for the past few months, I feel Anthony Mata would be a very good police chief to help move San Jose forward into a new generation of these sorts of questions, and should certainly be considered as a very good example of how to choose the next police chief of San Jose. This speech was a summary of the. I sent in about 8 letters to public record this week, and this was a summary of those letters. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That motion has been voted upon. Is there anyone who'd like to change their vote based on the public testimony? All right, seeing no hands, we'll move forward. Item 2 is a memorandum from Councilmember Jimenez on campaign finance regulations. I think Councilmember Jimenez is with us.
I am. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me just fine?
Welcome. Yep.
Trying something new this time. All right, very good. So listen, we submitted this memorandum. Really, I'm hoping as a prelude to longer conversations on the topic. I think they're very important, and I know that we've seen this election cycle really an astonishing amount of money spent on negative, divisive, and often, as we can all recall, misleading or outright false advertisements and other campaign materials that have come forward before the voters. And that's obviously happened this election cycle, past election cycles. And just to give you a sense as to how much money was spent, I want to read off maybe about 3 or 4 top organizations. One is the Silicon Valley organization, about $588,000. South Bay Labor Council, about $430,000. And Innovation for Everyone, about $383,000. And so obviously that's a lot of money. And so what I believe is really what we know is that toxic campaign practices really, in my mind, diminish public trust and harm the integrity of elections. I think a lot of voters, as you all know very well, are misled on a variety of sort of topics and items as it relates to some of these mailers. And I believe that to advance the public interest in fair campaign practices and restore public trust in local government, I think we need to review and to the extent possible, strengthen local campaign finance regulations. The memo is really meant to, just to state it very bluntly, is just to start a conversation on how we can be more transparent and really begin building the public confidence as it relates to local elections. The memo, I'm not going to go through every single point. I assume many of you have read it already and you probably have some questions, but it touches on disclosure. It touches on enforcement. As an example, maybe having the city clerk or some other neutral party serve as a repository for campaign materials to make it easier to enforce regulations, as an example. It mentions the idea of bringing forward a study session where we can simply provide the council an opportunity to discuss other ways to appropriate regulate campaign practices. And it also touches on the idea of amending the scope of the Charter Review Commission or Committee to look at the Code of Ethics, section 607, I believe. And in there, it talks about that the Code of Ethics shall include but not be limited to ordinances related to following areas of regulation. It lists a few, but probably the most appropriate one is limitations on and requirements for reporting of campaign contributions and post-election contributions to candidates for elected office. And lastly, it seeks to amend the scope of the Charter Review Commission to take up the question of the possibility of elevating the San Jose Board of Fair Campaign and Political Practices as a charter, being in the charter similar to the Planning Commission, Civil Service Commission. And so, here to answer any questions. I think a lot more thought needs to go into this whole conversation, and that's why I thought it was important enough to bring it forward to begin discussing this, especially since we just finished wrapping up some elections that, as we all know, were a little contentious and brought, I think, a lot of things to the surface that I think we as a community need to do our best to try to address. And so with that, I'll stop talking, and that's essentially the gist of the memo.
Thank you, Councilmember. Before we go to the public, does either Tony or Nora or...
Hi, this is Tony.
Yeah, do you want to weigh in at all on this?
Yeah, I think this is something that could be referred to the Board of Fair Campaign Practices for first review. It's a lot of work for our office, so I wouldn't give it a green light without give further discussion. I think option 2 is to send it to priority setting to see if you want to elevate it to BFCPP, because this would require probably additional staffing. We have redistricting and Charter Review Commission next year with our office. So our office is going to be really, really busy next year. But I definitely support sending it to BFCPP and getting them to kind of do a lot of the evaluation. I know the chair of the BFCPP has long argued that our ethics commission, our commission should have more teeth and more power. Power sounds like a terrible word. It sounds like power hungry, but San Francisco and Oakland both have ethics commissions that are staffed and have more power to do investigations, whereas ours really doesn't have that. So I know that's something he's been interested in looking at. So this is a topic they would be interested in. And I definitely think the conversation's a really good conversation to have. But I think it can go either there or to priority setting.
Okay. Nora or Lee, do you have any thoughts?
Our only thought is if it, once it makes its way to our office for drafting and things like that, it's going to take some time. We'd have to be careful with it, and there's a lot of legal overlays. And we would probably want to retain someone that does campaign finance law to be a consultant for us, just to make sure we get it right. So that would be our biggest concern.
Okay. Okay, let's go to the public and then we'll come back to the panel. So this is on item G2, the proposal for campaign finance regulation changes from Councilmember Jimenez. Any members of the public like to speak? Okay, Kevin Ma.
Hello, members of the Rules Committee. My name is Kevin Ma, he, him. I'm actually just a resident of the Santa Clara County in general, but I believe that the memo that Councilmember Jimenez is useful for the rest of the county to use as an example for how to fight against large amounts of money influencing our electoral system. We've seen races across the peninsula have suddenly a lot of money coming from organizations such as the realtors, apartment associations influencing city councils from San Jose to Mountain View to San Mateo. And as a result, any way we can do to restrict the amount of this, a lot of money coming into it, as long as we can restrict it or make it more identifiable to the average voter, we should be able to make our political affairs much more representative of people at large. We should be striking this as soon as possible. We have seen in San Jose the movement towards a strong mayor as well as fair elections initiative. So there's great interest in the topic from the general citizen about how to make city council that is much more representative, much more accessible to the average person. As a result, this memo should go forward as soon as possible. It could go through the board of campaign and political affairs, but as long as we can get to this with all due diligence, it is fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay Conkle?
Afternoon, everybody. Obviously, no surprise here where I fall. I think, despite the fact that this might be popping around because of the last month of the campaign, I spent over a year talking to residents about building trust through our political system, talking about things like publicly funded elections, because from the national level down to us, there has been immense amounts of distrust sowed through our political system. I think it should be one of the top priorities for the city of San Jose as we move forward, given what's happened, but also because it impacts what we're able to do in the future. When I was having conversations with people about our budget process, the trust that they didn't have in our political system made them not believe the way that our budget system was working and how they could implement what they thought was the right future for our community. It led to people being disenfranchised and then pulling themselves out of the political process, which is the exact opposite of what we want. So as we move forward, I would love to see us, if it's extra staff time set to this, I think it's rightfully appropriate, because this is a huge issue that we have to solve before we can do so many other of the challenging and complex steps forward for the city of San Jose.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my attendee list just dropped. Mr. Beekman?
Hi, to quickly try to offer hopefully a related item. With all your redistricting issues, to make it how to make it a better public process in the next years, I just wanted to quickly remind that the Brown Act ideas that came out of the SAG meetings the past few years, they're really interesting ideas that maybe are being used by the mayor's first intentions of how to consider public meeting of the redistrict process. But those Brown Act ideas can also work for the people who are trying to counter that a bit and help define the future of the public meeting process for redistricting. I hope that can be a connection to what this issue is about. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily Ann Ramos?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and committee members, for letting me speak on the agenda item today. I urge you to move forward with Councilmember Jimenez's memo. The fundamental cornerstone of our democracy is people's ability to vote and trust that their vote matters. And when so much money is thrown into these races, it does cause a distrust and negative feelings toward something that is so important and so fundamental to our self-determination. So I urge you, regardless whether it goes forward through the ethics committee, through the priority session, but to move Councilmember Jimenez's memo forward. There are several tenets in that memo that I think that that would be very helpful to regain trust in our democracy. And our democracy is worth fighting for. So thank you for your time. I urge you to move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hiwan Hyder?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Liccardo. This is Hawad, he, him, District 1. Mayor Liccardo, you and I had a brief Twitter exchange a little while back when you tweeted condemning the SVO racist attack ad, and I asked you kind of what you would be willing to do to curb the influence of independent expenditures in our local political system. And, you know, wisely, you directed me to Citizens United, and I definitely agree with you. We can't limit this money. The 1.9 million that in total was spent at the city level, but what we can do is what I think are common sense reforms or common sense infrastructure. Right now, we have like a website called San Jose Political Mailers. They put up the mailers on their own. On the campaign I was helping out with, our volunteers were tracking the spending on their own. FPPC complaints are done by members of the public, but we don't actually have like city infrastructure to support the public when they're looking for the truth. Because as you know, Citizens United, spending that happens in our races, those spenders are not obligated to tell the truth, and that's a huge problem. If members of the committee run for re-election, run for other office, people you'd like to see elected run for office, we'd like to see the truth come out. And I think the least we can do is follow what Councilmember Jimenez has laid out, bring this opportunity for the city to put up campaign materials and give them more details about who this was spent by. We're seeing some investigations happen now from the spending in the D4 and D6 races because there were not disclosures. There were not proper disclosures in those races, and that caused voters to be misled, to be confused, to believe lies. So I hope you'll all consider this. Thank you. Really.
Thank you. Alina, welcome.
Hello there. Alina, she, they, District 6. I agree with Councilmember Jimenez. California has the Fair Political Practice Committee, but does allow cities further agency, and San Jose has taken that agency. We are one of 5 California cities that allow our own ethics commission, but we're the only one that is not linked to the city charter. And I think this is an opportune time to move this memo forward due to the current charter review commission that will be convening soon. And right now, the board doesn't have the research capacity without someone submitting or filing a complaint. And this is counterintuitive to the Silicon Valley spirit and process of being forward-thinking and innovative. And I think this would also enable the Board of Fair Campaign and Political Practices to be more helpful, not just to the public, but also to current council members when it comes to filing paperwork and being in compliance. And I think this would just be a great move for the public and staff and elected officials as a whole. And I fully support this and urge that we move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Either Angel or Angel Madero?
Yeah, hi there. Thanks for having me. I'm here in District 6. I mean, he, him. Just like based off this last election that we noticed, just so much misleading, so many lies being told, and a lot of really awful things just being spread out. I mean, from every side and every direction, but I mean, primarily pointed if you paid attention to the election at all. I mean, I'm not going to say much more than what's already been said. I mean, I really want to echo all those points. They're very strong, very poignant, especially in our election season that just wrapped up. But as a local youth trying to break into politics, like this past election doesn't inspire absolutely any confidence that I can break in and like make a difference in local politics. It's just so disheartening. It's so intimidating to think that I, like just a youth living with my parents, I'm gonna like, I don't even know what would be told of me. Like, I don't know, like I could come up with a bunch of stuff right now. It's counter campaigning, but it's just so sad to see how this works. And it really, takes away agency from a lot of folks who otherwise would really be out there doing the work, getting everything done and doing the most they can. But when you see all this money being spent against people, all this money, all these lies being told, it's just so, it's like you're just staring at a huge brick wall. And unless you align yourself with people who have money, who many times are not representative of common interests, then you just fail straight up. So I agree that I echo all the points that were said earlier. And then I do recommend that you guys look into this council memorandum. It has a lot of great points, and I also think it could go further. So definitely studying that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's return to the panel now. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Reading the memo, I think there's a lot of great points that are being made. I think we could all agree that there needs to be more transparency and more accountability in campaigning. I think we could all probably tell stories about when we were running for office. One of my memories is seeing a mailer that came out that had a black and white grainy picture of me looking like I just killed 12 people. And then it had a big caption that said, if you vote for Chappie Jones, you're going to bring crime and corruption to San Jose. And so that's one of those times when it really hits home that, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of lies that come out during campaigns, and anything that we can do to mitigate that or address it, or at least shine a light on it and make anybody that's participating in that more accountable, I think is a good thing. Like I always like to say, the devil's in the details, and there's a lot to unpack in Councilmember Jimenez's memo. And I'm just trying to figure out probably the best path forward in order to at least get the process started, get the dialogue going. And in my mind, it probably is the BFCPP that would probably be the best venue to at least initiate the process. And because I just imagine that right now with staff, they're so overworked and at capacity that I don't think there's the ability to do any meaningful work on this. And if it goes to priority setting, then it'll probably be delayed even further. So I think that probably that going to that the board would probably be the best path forward. But I want to hear from my colleagues what they think.
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, to go to where would be the best step forward?
The BFCPP, which I don't think I'll ever get that acronym down.
The commission.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
The Board of Fair Campaign and Political Practices, which is a mouthful.
Yes. Councilmember Camus?
Yeah, well, so I'm not ready to take it down that road before we really study the potential pitfalls. Because I could tell you, I mean, I experienced the same thing. I don't know what Vice Mayor, who did that campaign hit piece on you? Who is that?
Gosh, I don't even remember now.
Okay, you're trying to be nice. I remember the hit pieces that were done on me, and it was the firefighters union, quite frankly, and I could tell you that that I hate all these these committees. I can't stand these IEs. I wish they would be more transparent. There was so much money spent by the teachers union, who my wife pitches into and goes against many of the things that I supported. So I get it. However, I think we can be in a lot of legal trouble because I don't even think that the things that we have currently, the restrictions on the dates as to when we could start fundraising, for example, the limits on the fundraising, I don't think any of those are constitutionally legal. So if we open up this can of worms, we better be ready to pay the price. I could tell you, you just got to be careful what you wish for. When I was running for reelection a while back, I consulted with an attorney, a constitutional attorney, about the restriction for me starting to fundraise only 6 months in advance of the time that of the election. And they said that that's not constitutional. And if I were to pay enough money, that the constitutional attorney would actually sue the city over it. So I think we all have to be careful of all these restrictions. On top of that, I don't know that I want a bureaucrat telling me what is okay for me to publish and what is not okay for me to publish. I especially don't want a committee that's politically appointed to tell me if I'm sending out a mailer that is to their approval. I could tell you that I went through this committee to lodge a complaint when I was running for office, where I literally caught one of my opponents red-handed campaign asking for money before the election cycle was allowed to, and they did not punish her in any way. So I think that they are okay with some people and they're not okay with other people. So there's potential inherent biases on these committees if they're the ones who are going to be adjudicating what's okay to print and what's okay to not. The only thing that I would be supportive of, and I don't get to make this decision obviously in the future, but I think you should study it I think you should crawl before you run. I think you should study these issues and have a First Amendment attorney. And I think you would be surprised of how many things that we are already doing that may not frankly be legal already. And so that's the only thing I'm willing to support as a study session.
Right. Councilmember Ennis?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree that we can all come up with an instance where our faces weren't used appropriately. We weren't portrayed as who we think we are or who we want to be for our public. And so I think, Councilmember Jimenez brings up a really good point, and I think he did a really wonderful job in this memo. It's there's a lot here to unpack, and I wonder if he would be willing, because I know this says direct staff to research and return to council with ordinances that strengthen our local campaign finance regulations. But I think we would benefit from a conversation maybe at the council level. This is something that would impact each and every council member, and for the rules committee to be just left to decide the fate of this, to me seems not inclusive and not comprehensive. And so I do agree that there's some steps that we can take before we commit to doing all of the research. And I wonder if maybe that's part of the conversation. And I think Councilmember Jimenez, you're still on the line. Is that something that you would be willing to look into, or that you would be willing to take as first steps, maybe a study session, a conversation about exactly what that direction should be for the study session?
Of course, I think that my expectation all along is, we submit this, and at times when we submit memos, it's either the choice of being not too prescriptive or more prescriptive. Obviously, this memo particularly maybe landed more on the prescriptive side, giving a date and clear direction in my mind. But I have no fantasies that this was going to be approved. My expectation was simply that this would again be a prelude to a longer conversation that maybe I think warrants going before the full council. Quite frankly, going before the full council, having a discussion, it may go nowhere. We may defer it. We may send it to the BFCPP, or these different acronyms, right? That is the intent of it, is just to begin the conversation. And so I am totally fine with sending it there, for example, and moving forward a part of this or not. And really, let me just conclude by saying, I understand that, as you well said, we can come up with different scenarios of different organizations, both, and let's just, for the sake of argument, on both sides of the aisle, right? That is very clear. But this is a sincere, in my mind, attempt at working collaboratively just to look at this as a larger issue. There is no, I tried the best I could to make the language in this memo, working with my team, to be as neutral as possible. I'm not trying to suggest that folks that support me or other folks, or have their hands in this, or even, attacking the SVO given what's happened recently. That is not an interest of mine. And so if we want to set this aside or send it to a committee and a body to study, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'd be supportive of that.
Right. I agree with you. I don't, because whatever's good for the goose is good for the gander here. So it would hold both, any which side of it accountable. But I did hear a lot of the speakers who spoke today about feeling a bit disenfranchised, or maybe discouraged about what they saw happening in our election year this year. And I heard that there's a need to really have something where it's a consolidated location where the city of San Jose can have some of that information, instead of a lot of our citizens or our residents looking for things. And so that really appealed to me. I don't know if it's something that we should be doing. It makes sense to have some organization do it. I don't know if we're the most appropriate organization to actually do that, but to have something where anybody can go into, look at some of the campaign flyers that are going, any of the other investments that are being made in forms of IEs or any campaign disclosure, just to have one location. It's already very complicated enough, and to have to look through the different systems is just muddies the water a little bit more. So I would love to have this go to the commission, the BFCPP commission. That rolled off the tongue only because we said it like 3 times. Otherwise,
That's
Vice
the world's
Mayor,
worst acronym, by the way.
I would never be saying this acronym if we didn't make a point out of it being so awkward from the get-go. So anyways, I think that's a really great place to begin the conversation before it actually comes to city council, and then maybe having some of that legal impact that Councilmember Camus was talking about. I don't know what that would be. I know, Nora, you talked about by the time that it hits your office, you would put together an ordinance, right? But I think at this point, I wouldn't expect that we would have an ordinance produced, and but that we would actually begin a discussion around that. And so with that in mind, do you think that we would be able to have some like legal guidance for the commission so that they can understand what to consider in terms of legal impacts?
Yes. And I think the one of the ideas in the memo was to have a study session this coming spring with some campaign finance legal experts. And so that might address some of those questions also, or help provide a legal framework, because it is a complex area, there's no doubt.
Right. Well, it would be great to have a study session both with the council and the commission. I'm sure that we could both benefit from that. I really appreciate your effort here, Councilmember Jimenez. I think that it's very thorough, and like you said, I think you recognize that some of these things are, ready to put into the oven and just bake. And I don't know that we're there yet. We're still like mixing the dough, kind of. So I'd like for us to first take some smaller steps, send this to our commission, have that study session, and have just a baseline understanding both for the council and for the commission, so that we can understand what are those legal impacts? What can we or can we not do? And so that we can actually make some decisions about the rest of your memo and the body of the memo. So I'd like to make a motion to move your memo, but with well, maybe not move your memo, but make a motion to begin the discussion about this with our commission, our BFC. See, now I messed up. PP commission in a study session as the first steps to addressing this issue. And then because your memo at this point, council member has directing staff with to produce ordinances. I don't know that I would be in that place to support that just yet because we haven't had that discussion. And so I think at minimum for me, I would be very comfortable moving at the very least the study session piece of your memo sometime in spring that would involve that would be like a joint study session with that commission and our council.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Davis?
Thank you. I also want to thank Councilmember Jimenez for bringing this forward and getting the discussion started. There's, as Councilmember Arenas said, there is not a one of us who got elected without having a negative mailer or 2 or 10 against us. And having gone through 2 campaigns now, or 4 if you take primaries and generals into account, alliances can shift and you never really know. And you never get to have full control of your own messaging as a candidate because of independent expenditures, which is very frustrating for all of us, I think. So I'm happy to have this discussion. I did want to ask though, I have had a resident actually recently resign from the Board of Fair Campaign and Political Practices because he was concerned that the board was actually becoming too political and not being enough separated enough from the process. So I do have some reservations about sending it to that board, especially now. I don't know, Tony, if you are, does your office staff that?
Yes.
Council and or commission and sending it there. I mean, you already mentioned the Charter Review Commission and the redistricting commission. Does sending it there actually make less work for you, or? So
Yes.
that's number one, and then number two. My understanding is that commission is not currently fully built out.
They are not currently full. There's only 3 members. We're pulling the applications to see if we can get somebody appointed in the interviews in January. We have another person who's got a term ending in February. So we would hopefully be fully staffed by February. If we referred this to BFCP though, they could get started on it in December. And then usually, because they do Title 12 review after every election. So this kind of thing is not outside of what they normally do. They'll take a year's worth of referrals. This would be one of the referrals, and then they go through all of them. We would want to fast track this one because if you want a spring study session, we'd probably want to come back in April. So that would give the new members February and March to also be part of the discussion, but the discussion could start in December. They could start asking us for like what research that they might need. The chair of the commission is very, very good at research himself. So he often does a lot of research and brings that into the commission. So it wouldn't put that much extra work on us going to the commission because we already staffed them and we're already doing things for them. This is a normal thing for us to do in the odd numbered years to look at Title 12 changes because every election they look at what went right, what went wrong, what can we do, what suggestions can we make to council to make it better.
Okay.
So part of that. Like they'll look at all the stuff that went on this election that's part of this memo and like, what could we do to make it better? And if we get the people interviewed and appointed in January, again, you'll have February and March with a fully staffed commission.
And how many commission members are there?
5.
Okay.
So I have 3 currently, and there's normally 5. Because we had 2 resignations.
So you had 2 resignations.
Right, one person resigned because she got a job at the city, and you can't employ in on the commission. And then the last one is the one you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. And you have a 3rd person whose term is up at the end of January?
At the end of February.
At the end of February. Okay, so there would be at least one person who would be coming in new halfway through the process.
I need to double check, but I think that commissioner is eligible for reappointment.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. That's helpful. And so, are you saying a study session in spring? You would want it to be kind of more late spring, perhaps?
I was looking at, and this is Rochelle is president for the city manager's office, and Lee. I was looking. I just had it open, and now I can't find it. I was looking at the schedule for study sessions, and we have a hold on April 12th, Monday, April 12th, 1:30 to 4:30. I think that would be a good date because I think it's good to give a commission an end date. Like you have to get this done by the end of your March meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Plus we've got, with redistricting and charter review, they're going to start ramping up in February. Redistricting start up in February. And so that'll help me like end kind of one project while another one's coming up. So I feel like April 12th would be a good date if the city manager's office is okay with that.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. And then Nora, does your office have the bandwidth also to work with that board? I refuse to use the acronym, you guys, because I'm going to get it wrong. So I'm just going to say the board.
Yes, and actually the attorney who works with Tony works with that board also and would be involved in these drafting the ordinances for these issues and doing the deep dive. So that would work.
And you can bring the specialist in sooner before the study session.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I'll support the motion.
Mayor, can I say something?
Okay, Councilmember Jimenez.
Just very briefly, I mean, I know, listen, that we as a city are dealing with a lot. And so, for example, if we moved a study session to the early fall, like I'm okay with that. The memo, we try to sort of come up with some concrete asks, but, I understand that we as a city are dealing with a lot. So if we need to move it to the early fall, that's okay too. The other thing that I think, maybe folks on rules can consider is just that the Charter Review Commission, that's going to be taking shape very quickly, as we know. And so the board, I'll stop using that acronym as well. It just sounds funny, but the board and the composition of the board and the structure of it, and maybe the lack of objectivity by some folks in the community as it relates to the actions of the board. I think that's some of the stuff that the Charter Review Committee could take up, quite frankly. To really evaluate whether, one, it should be elevated to a committee that's recognizing the charter, but also the structure of it, right? Because I think we all want an objective sort of body there doing that work. I'm not, as like anyone else, not interested in having them doing X and Y for particular political interests. And so that may be it may be good to include that and amend the scope of the Charter Review Commission. And then also the Code of Ethics, that may be a good time to review it as well. And that's in the memo, but I know there's a lot and it sort of got lost in the conversation. But I think there may be an opportunity to touch some of these items and really dig in a little bit more. Just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? Any questions or comments on the motion? Councilmember Arenas.
I'd like to ask Councilmember Jimenez, can you describe what you were thinking about the Charter Review Commission and related to the BFCPP? Do you mean have the Charter Review Commission determine whether that board should be acknowledged through the charter?
Yeah, so currently the charter commissions that are sort of built into the charter, the planning commission, the civil
Right,
service
right, right.
commission, and the salary setting. And so the board that we were talking about isn't recognized as such. And so what I was thinking is, since we're having the charter review committee do some of this work as it relates to the charter and looking at, you know, additional powers to the mayor and on, that they may take up the task of, you know, evaluating whether it's if this board, the BFCPP, is important enough to elevate to be established in the charter and give it more credibility, I think, and more objectivity to a certain extent. So that's what the idea was.
And Nora, would that be something that's that could be incorporated into the commission's review or role to do without a lot of issue, or is that something that would be legally not doable right now? I mean, how plausible is this?
We can go back and check, but I think the way it was left was a fairly broad review of the charter provisions. And so we can check that and get back to you on it. But I think that I think it was to be a sort of a holistic review of some of those types of charter issues.
Well, you know, I would like to, I think, Tony, you did mention that this board would like to have more teeth. I think was the phrase that you used, in the work that they're doing. I think it is worth, you know, the time. I don't know what my colleagues think of it, but if it's not too much to add to the commission to review, I think it's something that we could consider, either here now at rules, or we can take it to council and hear what the rest of our council members. I guess I'm trying to figure out what the rules commission, what the rules, my colleagues in rules think of this.
But I guess I'll just jump in. I think it would have to go to the full council. I think this Charter Review Commission is going to have an awful lot to bite off already. So I'm not eager to put more in front of them. That would be my gut, because I think this thing could go on a long time already. But happy to hear my thoughts, my colleagues here. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I was actually thinking the same thing. I am supportive of having the Charter Review Commission do that evaluation to determine whether the BFCPP should be elevated to be in the charter. But I have that same concern in terms of all the issues and items that the Charter Review Commission has on their plate, whether they would even have the capacity or bandwidth to even address this. So I would be supportive of moving that particular item onto council to have a further conversation and dialogue. And we can actually get more information from the city attorney's office, the city clerk's office, and other stakeholders in terms of the ability or capacity to be able to take that on. So I would be supportive of amending the motion to incorporate that.
Perfect. Would that also then include the code of ethics, amending that scope, if the commission was to be to review whether to incorporate this particular board into the charter? Would that also go with the code? Have the commission also review the code of ethics?
So I wasn't looking to have them take on that responsibility. I think that would go more towards, and I was trying to avoid having to say the acronym again, but the BFCPP, I think be more equipped to address that particular item. I was thinking more so just in terms of elevating it to be in the charter, city charter.
I do like the idea of relying on this commission to make more decisions, and incorporating that commission into the charter, I think also elevates the group of people who are part of that as well. So I will accept that revision, Vice Mayor, and hopefully, our roles colleagues also support it. We can have the rest of the conversation, like you said, Mayor, at council.
Can you also include Councilmember Arenas a new name, another name change for that?
Absolutely, a fancy, super easy one.
Maybe a simple acronym like BFF.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Please take note of that, Tony, for future reference.
I would like to point out just one thing. Some of the things that you're talking about here have to do with campaign issues and contributions and things like that. And Tony would know better on the timing. But as you go through 2021, you're going to start hitting timeframes for the 2022 election cycle on some of the campaign issues. And so that some of the other issues you're talking about, you might be broader and could be taken up at a later date. But I don't think we can be in a position of making changes to the campaign finance portions after a certain point in 2021, I think, Tony, maybe early 2020.
It's usually somewhere around December 8th. I haven't calculated yet when the contribution period starts. So any ordinance has to be in effect 30 days prior to that. We generally bring any Title 12 changes in late September to early October to make sure it's passed by the end of October so it's in place for December.
Yeah. So there really are two positions that you're talking about to some extent, or two tracks. One is broader issues, it sounds like, on possibly ethics or the role of the commission, but the other has more to do with campaign issues. And those, I think, are going to have to be decided. If you want them for the 2022 election, they're going to have to be decided earlier.
Okay, other thoughts? Councilmember Davis?
But the issues that we're talking about are not for candidates. We're talking about independent expenditures, and those are not time limited in any way, and they cannot be, is my understanding. So honestly, I don't think it really matters because it doesn't impact the dates for fundraising for any one of us.
Okay.
They can do independent expenditures today, tomorrow, anytime they want.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Yeah, I would just caution one thing. I think before we're convinced we need to go give a commission greater authority or enhance its rulemaking or anything like that, we have to consider whether we're really accomplishing much if it's the council that ultimately selects the commission that polices them. And I think if we're really going to think seriously about accountability on ethics, campaign issues with council members, there needs to be a way of taking the council out of the decision-making chain, and simply empowering whatever majority may rule the council on any given day with the authority to pick their own regulators is precisely contrary to what the public should expect in terms of transparency in government. And of course, we'll ensure that everything is cooked in advance. And that's, I think, the worst thing for us to do is to create a veneer of respectability and independence around a commission that is clearly selected by the council. We'd better find a better way of picking that commission if we really want to authentically improve transparency, accountability in that regard. So that's my perspective, but we'll obviously have a lot more to discuss in the weeks and months ahead. All right, anything further? All right, let's vote.
Camus? Camus?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure what we're voting on exactly, because I'm okay with taking it to the study session in the fall. Is that what we're voting on?
Yeah, let's actually restate the motion if we can.
Okay, what I have is the memo is being referred to BFCPP, and then it will come back to council, and then council will discuss everything and whether it should go to charter review.
I thought the motion was
correct?
there was going to be a study session and.
Right, that's what I mean by going back to council.
Okay, all right then. Then yes,
Okay.
aye.
If you'd like, we can first go to council before it goes to the commission.
I don't know what we're looking for as far as necessarily guidance from the commission, especially on its own powers and what they'd like to do. So, I honestly, it won't affect me much because I'm not voting on this next year. I just wanted to warn everybody of the potential political pitfalls. That's all my point was supposed to be.
Okay, so that was a yes vote, correct?
Yes, it was a yes.
Okay, Davis?
Aye.
Arenas?
Yeah.
Jones?
Aye.
Liccardo?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Back to the agenda, item 3. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm just pulling it up now. G3 is the memorandum from Vice Mayor, Councilmember Foley, and Councilmember Jimenez regarding the designation of June 19th as a public holiday in the city of San Jose, recognizing the end of slavery in the United States. Would any of the authors of that memo like to speak? See, Councilmember Foley, do you have your hand up?
I'd love to speak if I could get it started and then pass it
Please
off
do.
to the Vice Mayor and Councilmember Jimenez. I'm here to speak on our memo to recognize Juneteenth as a citywide holiday. That would be June 19th. This is an important day to recognize as it symbolizes the day that freedom from slavery was declared in 1865 in Texas. It is a full 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued. So up until then, Black people who lived in Texas still thought that they were slaves. Acknowledging this holiday, while just purely symbolic, shows our employees that we value our diversity and respect their heritage and culture. I want to thank the mayor, Vice Mayor Jones, Councilmember Jimenez for their support. For me, this is an opportunity to proclaim that systemic racism must end and that begins with me. I realize this type of recognition doesn't come easy and that there may be steps that we have to jump through in order to accomplish this. However, I humbly request the opportunity to have this discussion with my council colleagues and staff and to determine the feasibility of recognizing this date annually, which may have some financial impacts. With that, I thank you and appreciate your support.
So Mayor, I'd like to also say, first of all, I want to thank Councilmember Foley for initiating this. I was, when she brought it to my attention, I was really, I was proud. I was proud to be asked to participate on the memo, but also I was proud that you were bringing this forward. I grew up my whole life celebrating Juneteenth, and I always knew of it as being a holiday and something to celebrate in terms of our emancipation and getting our freedom. I also have learned that knowledge and understanding is not universal. And because I like to tell stories, I'm going to tell a quick story. And that is that one day I looked at my son's yearbook. And usually in your yearbooks, you know, you have a lot of notes from your friends saying it was great to spend the year or the whole time we've been in high school with you. It's great to have you as my friend. You know, you're a funny person. So I read his yearbook, and probably about half of the entries in his yearbook had something to do with him being Black. There was a lot of liberal use of the N-word, comments like, "I bet you like fried chicken and watermelon." There was a Confederate flag that was written next to, that was drawn next to his picture. And he was one of 5 African-American students at his high school, Lynbrook High School, out of a class of 1,800. And the reason why I'm telling you the story is because the people that wrote in his yearbook weren't bad people. They were actually his friends. But it was a realization that you have communities who really don't understand America's original sin, which was slavery. And by designating Juneteenth as a holiday, I think that we will go a long way with educating, enlightening the greater community in terms of the impact of slavery for the last 400 years in post-slavery, when we went into Jim Crow and other forms of discrimination. So I want to again thank you, Councilmember Foley, for bringing this forward, and hopefully we can get the support of our colleagues.
Vice Mayor, are you going to make the motion?
I guess I should.
Forgive me, I'm sorry. I was talking and realized I was muted.
Go ahead.
Vice Mayor, well said.
All right, I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Second.
Okay. We'll go to the community, then we'll come back for further discussion. Thank you, both Councilmember and Vice Mayor, for your comments, but I appreciate particularly the observations, Vice Mayor. From the community, Blair Beekman.
Hi, I had a couple items to ask about with this item. I know that at the county level, they're working on this idea too of a holiday for Juneteenth. They have it a bit more complicated. What Councilperson Jones just described was, thank you. It helps a lot. It was just really, it was good to hear that. I'm 50 years old now, and you know, I grew up, I guess, with more of a northern attitude and feeling about things. By the time I hit my, you know, mid-20s to 40s, I learned to like kind of just accept the Confederate flag and people's love of the Confederate flag, and you know, I was never ever gung ho about it, but it just somehow just became a part of myself that it was acceptable in some way, or just I would never question it anymore. And about 10 years ago, I was able to start questioning it again, and just simply, why do we have, you know, the Confederate flag is such a symbol in our lives, and the same with Confederate statues, and the same sort of thinking involved. I mean, there's a long history, and Chappie Jones is describing, you know, how we're trying to describe that history now. And I thank yourselves that in the place I'm at this time I like where I'm at to learn to, you know, question these things. And so thank you very much for your words on this item. And to the future, we can hopefully be headed towards at this time. I wanted to quickly ask also, was the consent calendar items, were they approved by any chance? I just wanted to ask to be sure. Thank you.
We'll come back to you on consent. I believe they were there. Yeme Herma? Please forgive me if I just mispronounced your name, Yeme.
That's quite all right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yemi Gurma. I live in District 10, and I really just want to thank Vice Mayor Jones, Councilmember Foley, and Jimenez for bringing this forth. I support the designation of June 19th as a public holiday. I work for the county, and the county just passed that as a holiday. Vice Mayor Jones, as you shared your story as a Black mother, I have had so many issues in schools here in San Jose. One of which that stands out to me is my son in grade school coming home and asking me what the N word meant. And because it's not a word that we use in our home, and I asked him where he heard it from, and he went on to express how kids call him dad and say things like, don't touch me, or I'm not gonna play with you, and just refer to him in that word, and dealing with the school and addressing that. So it goes a long way in affirming the history in this country, and really learning and unlearning the history that we have learned and looking at things from a different perspective. So thank you for bringing that forth. I definitely support it. And it's mind-blowing to me that Texas of all states passed this in 1980. So good job, San Jose, for considering it. And let's move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Oma, please forgive me if I've just mispronounced your name.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
All right. My name
Welcome.
is Ihoma Umez Ernini. I live in District 6. I also want to commend the council members for bringing this forward and to declare my wholehearted support of it. As a Nigerian Trinidadian American, I really appreciate the acknowledgement of this history and believe that it's part of a strategy of having a better San Jose. So I want to commend the council members and hope that our city can continue to make strides and advances in racial reconciliation and equity, and just support wholeheartedly this motion.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Foley, for bringing this forward, along with Vice Mayor and Councilmember Jimenez. I support the motion. I think undoubtedly, as we know, that certainly declaring the holiday is important and meaningful. I know to many of us in the community. I think we are dealing with challenges, of course, in implementation if it involves City Hall being closed and city workers being off, particularly doing so at a time when I think we all know the city budget is going to be mightily strapped. And one idea that I know several of you have considered before, I know I've had conversations in a different context with Councilmember Davis, having nothing to do with this particular item, and with Vice Mayor as well, and Councilmember Foley, was the idea of creating essentially floating holidays so that city employees might be able to choose which holidays they would like to celebrate with a fixed number of those holidays, so that there wouldn't be any budgetary impact for our creation of new holidays, but rather we would create some kind of designation process so that city employees who would like to be able to enjoy that holiday with their family or friends could do so. I know undoubtedly there are complications there. We've had some preliminary conversations, I think, with Jennifer Shembry about that concept. I believe it would require meet and confer with bargaining units, but I think we'd be required to do that no matter what anyway. Is that right, Jennifer?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So I wonder if, as part of the motion, Vice Mayor might consider consideration of that approach, and not just for this holiday, but for holidays that already exist, where we could explore the idea of us giving a designated, I think the number is 11 today, holidays throughout the calendar year. And so that number would be fixed, but if there are more holidays, obviously, as we choose to add, we would give some flexibility then to city workers as to which holiday they would select. Is that something you'd be open to?
Yes, definitely, Mayor. Actually, it was something that we were considering anyway. It didn't make it into the memo, but it was definitely something that we were considering. And I think it is a very viable path forward. So yes, I will accept that.
Okay, and the seconder, Councilor Davis. All right. Yes. Thank you. Councilmember Arenas.
Thank you. I also want to thank the council members Foley and Jones for bringing this forward. I think it's a wonderful way to recognize America's past. But I also think that it comes with a lot of responsibility on us to provide an accurate historical perspective on this. And I think it would merit the work of the equity, the race and equity department to do some work at the same time that we have these holidays. Because these are holidays that we either have a month celebrating Black History Month or Hispanic History Month or many other ethnicities that are prevalent here in California or in our city. But we have to be careful that we don't create, that we're respectful about how we roll these holidays out, so that we don't make these holidays just as one, this 1 week, this one day where we celebrate the differences instead of, and acknowledge that there's a history behind this holiday. I don't want to pass that over. I absolutely want to celebrate with everyone else during Juneteenth and every day of the year. But I think it also comes with an arm of education that has to do with the race and equity department, so that it's not left as a holiday that, you've got your day. And so, that's done. February's done. So none of that anymore. That we have to have these conversations every month, every day of the year, as we live in our skin every day of the year, and to recognize our differences and how we're living with those, and how we're living with each other in harmony, and to lead to that, because there's a lot that needs to get repaired after this administration, this national federal administration, and just the national conversation is leading us to this. And so I think I absolutely will support this, but I also think that we need to have some educational piece to this that goes along with celebrating a holiday and what are we celebrating, and bringing real meaning to that, either through our race and equity department or through our human resources department. I think we need to take advantage of every opportunity to build that conversation and continue that conversation on every day.
Thank you. Lee?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify and first thank the vice mayor and council members for reaching out to city manager's office on this issue before, for putting out the memorandum. So thank you on this topic. Since it will be a meet and confer issue, I'd ask that the direction be for this to go to closed session rather than open session. And then if we are going to explore some possible policy alternatives, such as the one that we discussed, just ask for a little bit of flexibility and a few additional weeks, so it not come back on December 1st, so that we can properly do that work and bring it to you.
I'll accept that.
And that's acceptable, Councilmember Davis? Okay. All right, great. I think we have a motion. Unless there's any other comments, let's vote.
Amos?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Arenas?
Yes.
Jones?
Aye.
Licardo?
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Councilmember Foley. Item 4 is the Measure G work plan for expansion of the authority of the IPA and arbitration reform. There's a memorandum from Councilmember Carrasco and myself. I think it's relatively self-explanatory. I know that we have discussed the first 2 items, I believe, in some substance already as a council in closed session. And I guess the third item would be what is would of course be added to the work plan. Thank you for the early consideration response from the city manager's team. Let's go to the public and then we'll come back to the committee. Harriet Wolf, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, I'm
a resident of District 4, and I'm a member of PAC's Beloved Community Team. I endorse the proposals made in the Mayor Liccardo's and Councilman Carrasco's memo. Our team is proud of our efforts to educate the community about the benefits of Measure G, which contributed to its resounding passage. While it took over 5.5 years, the Beloved community, in partnership with other community members and agencies, have, through research and advocacy, motivated the community to support increased transparency and accountability in law enforcement. Thank you, elected leaders and members of the Police Officers Association, for hearing the community's voices and crafting the language and intent of Measure G. The actions that the memo calls for will increase public trust, demonstrate fairness, and ensure safety for community members and police officers alike. These actions will signal that there is no room in our police department for any officers who cannot or will not uphold the honor and dignity of the office and show all community members respect and decency. Please enact the recommendations in this memo. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beekman?
Hi, thank you. Thanks. It's been a lot of years and a lot of effort for this to happen. So thank you. I wanted to offer, not just ideas of what can give, the IPA more of a sense of control and understanding to help, create transparency and accountability. In this time of defund, I'm interested in the issues of what can police do themselves to work towards proactive, progressive ideas. And, I think ideas of the peer review program and whistleblower protection ideas help created by the ACLU specifically for police within, their departments. I think that's interesting work. I think, the peer review program ideas is it offers like our better mental health ideas at this time that are basically ideas we're all sharing and working towards. And how can that be a more open communicative process for police officers? I think that can make their jobs easier to then connect and communicate with the IPA and other people of the community. And whistleblower protections is a way, to not make things so secretive. And it gives good ways that we can just be more open with ourselves and how we talk and communicate and need to express ourselves sometimes. And, that there's a lot of, macho hidden secretiveness within police departments that I think these ideas can address, that we're all trying to address. So, good luck in a progressive process we can all be a part.
Thank you. Yemi, welcome.
Hi again. My name is Yemi Gurma. I am a community volunteer with PAC's Beloved Community Team, and I live in District 10. The overwhelming support for the passage of Measure G signifies to me that the days of police reform is over. We need a total foundational transformation of the public safety system. Moving the investigative power of the IPA office is a critical step that will increase public trust, address police misconduct, demonstrate fairness, and ensure safety for the community and law enforcement. I endorse the follow-up actions to Measure G. The Beloved Community Team urges you to move forward with the memo's recommendation proposed by the Mayor and Council Carrasco, and thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Jen Castro, welcome.
Hi, my name is Jen Castro. I'm a resident of District 9, a member of PAC's Beloved Community Team. I'm here to heartily endorse follow-up actions to Measure G proposed by the Mayor and Councilmember Carrasco. Measure G passed with overwhelming community support. We must not pause. Moving investigative powers to the IPA office increases public trust, demonstrates fairness, and ensures safety for community members and police officers alike. Reforming the arbitration process signals that there is no room in our police department for any officers who cannot uphold the honor and dignity of the office, and shows all community members respect and decency. The beloved community team urges you to move forward with the memo's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Ihoma?
Hello again. My name is Ihoma Umez Ernini. I am the Director of Compassion and Justice Ministries at the River Church Community and also a member of PACT Beloved Community Team. And I wanted to express my support and enthusiastic endorsement of the follow-up actions to Measure G proposed by the council members Carrasco and Mayor Liccardo. And to state that in my community, and it's also true for San Jose, Measure G passed with overwhelming support. And so I want to underscore that it's now the time to just continue that good work. I led a protest at the very end of May that most of my church community attended. And from that protest, it ended when we were fired upon by the San Jose police. So I just want to underscore that the transfer of investigative powers to the IPA, it builds public trust, and it's a positive step to demonstrate the fairness and safety for both community members and for the police as a primary objective of our city. Additionally, the reforming of the arbitration process that was mentioned there conveys to both police and the community that San Jose has a commitment to this reimagined public safety. It signals that there's no room, no tolerance in our police department for any officers who cannot show all community members dignity and respect and grace, nor who fail to uphold the honor and dignity of that office and their sacred oath of office. So I just want to join with my congregation and the PACT Beloved Community Team in urging you to move forward with the memo and the recommendations, and just underscore my wholehearted support.
Thank you, Ihoma. Thank you. Thank you, the members of the community who came to speak, and particularly members of PACT who are pushing successfully for the passage of Measure G, which was supported overwhelmingly by our voters. What's in the memorandum before us are two basic elements. One, which we have considered before in closed session, but this is essentially to get the ball rolling, and that is the discussions that need to commence with our police union under state law regarding the movement of investigations outside of the police department, that is investigations of police misconduct, into the independent police auditor's office. And I know that many of us have talked privately and publicly about this issue. And I think as a country, we've simply moved beyond the point where we believe that we can continue to engender trust and confidence in the city and in the police department if we are simply resigned to having the police police themselves. I think in the United States of America in 2020, I think it's fair to say that the public has moved beyond that moment, and certainly they have expressed their views on the street and in the ballot box, and I think we owe it to them to move forward. Secondly, the issue with regard to this arbitration process, this became a flashpoint here in San Jose after, I think at the time it was Deputy Chief Eddie Garcia, then Chief, terminated an officer for racially menacing comments that were being made by via Twitter, and an unaccountable, unelected arbitrator reversed that decision and reinstated that officer. Well, it turns out that's not such an uncommon phenomenon, because we know arbitration is the process that's used in major cities throughout the country, in major city police departments. And when the Washington Post conducted a study of 37 major police departments, they found more than 450 officers that had been fired and reinstated by arbitrators, often with no judicial review, no accountability of any kind. And that raises, again, grave concerns around accountability and transparency. And so it seems to me that is another issue we need to negotiate with our police officers associations required by state law. I think there are changes that can be made. Certainly various commentators, legal scholars have offered suggestions, for example, around judicial review and other ideas that could dramatically improve that arbitration process and give us all more confidence that simply police chiefs can get rid of bad cops. That's what we need to ensure that the public knows and that we can actually do. And I should note that, more than one officer, several officers expressed views directly to me after that reinstatement of that officer who was fired in 2016, expressing frustration. And their frustration was reflective of the fact that nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. And a lot of good officers, a lot of hardworking officers who wake up every morning, think about how they're going to protect and serve our community, don't want to be sort of painted with the brush of disparagement that's attached to those officers who are reinstated because of simply the vagaries of a process that's broken. I think every officer wants to be able to hold their head high, knowing that they're serving in a police force in which only the best and brightest and most committed, most devoted public servants are part. So I hope that this is something that will be supported by a rank and file. I trust it will be if I think if we're able to correctly communicate what this is all about and hopefully move forward some real reform. So thank you to the committee for considering this. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to I will make a motion to support your memo, but I am making it with reservations. First of all, I want to thank you for incorporating in item number 1, having this go through the reimagining public safety process. My vision of this would be that it would come out of a community-based process where you have input from community members. Definitely, I appreciate and support all the hard work and dedication that PAC has done in terms of moving these initiatives forward. I've worked with them directly, and it's been a pleasure to work with them. And I know how they're focused on getting something done right away, and we all have the same objectives, at least I do, in terms of having a police force that has transparency and accountability. But I also want to have a police force that has high morale, high engagement, proactive policing, high retention, and low and high recruitment. And if you look at what's happening with some of our counterpart cities in the country, you can look at Atlanta, you can look at Baltimore, you can look at particularly Minneapolis right now, where the state of the police force is in disarray. They're losing many officers to either retirement, disability, or just moving to other departments. There's a lack of proactive engagement. And I don't know if the road that we're going down is going to avoid that, but I think we should do everything possible to get what we're looking for in terms of accountability and transparency, but also maintain the level and relationship that we have with the San Jose Police Department that, compared to other cities, I'm telling you, we're in much better shape than a lot of my counterparts that I talk to on a regular basis. And again, I don't know if those two things are mutually exclusive, but I think we should do everything in our power to have a fully engaged process that involves the community as well as the police department and the POA to have their input and have some type of meeting of the minds, if that's possible, to come out of that process. So I will make the motion to accept and move forward the Mayor and Councilmember Carrasco's memo with those reservations and caveats.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I know we've had prior conversations about this. Certainly appreciate the desire to have this part of, as is reflected in paragraph 1, part of reimagining discussion, but also recognizing that the nature of the timing of the discussions, particularly in contract negotiations with the POA, that in fact this may have to happen in parallel rather than in a sequence. Is that your understanding as well?
It's my understanding of the memo, how the memo was framed. I still have my reservations that as we go through this process and move forward and have the debate, I will articulate that further. But for right now, I understand what we're moving forward.
Okay. I just wouldn't want us putting the brakes on everything until, because I know this reimagining process isn't going to really start robustly until we've got a chief on board. That's many months down the road. And I'd hate to think we wouldn't be able to even get to the table while we're waiting for all that to happen. Councilmember Kemmis?
Yeah, and I agree in principle, definitely with the direction of this memo as well. And since Jennifer is here, might as well ask you a question. Have we discussed this with this memo at all with the POA and try to gather their thoughts? Is that dialogue been open yet?
No, I have not yet discussed this with them. We have in the past, years ago, had arbitration discussions, but not this specific memo.
Okay, because I've you know, so that I think the police department is undergoing quite a bit of changes currently, and with Measure G, I think it was a big move in the right direction, and I think we should thank the POA for actually supporting it and not funding any opposition to the, because there was no opposition, not even on the ballot statement. So I think that we are getting a level of cooperation from our POA that is unprecedented. Thanks to all of your efforts, Mayor, I think, of trying to heal some past wounds. And I am concerned about taking this by surprise. Mayor, did you extend?
Sure. Why don't I describe a little bit of, and certainly, by the way, I want to give a lot of credit to Vice Mayor Jones as well for the work that he did in our negotiating team as well. Obviously, most importantly, they need to be able to negotiate to support moving forward with Measure G. So, there's been a lot of conversation, obviously, with leadership in the police union about Measure G and how to get there. And I think incorporating Vice Mayor's idea about lifting the cap or the lid on the authority of the IPA through that measure. What I have had, certainly conversations with the leadership of the POA about these concepts, recognizing, as we both knew, that we weren't going to be negotiating about them. That would happen at the negotiating table through Jennifer's team. There is explicitly a reopener in the current contract to allow us to go back to the table to discuss issues relating to expansion of the IPA authority or reforms. And that was something Jennifer negotiated in the last contract. So there's nobody being taken by surprise. It doesn't mean they're going to support it. But that is my understanding is the nature of negotiations. People don't agree in the beginning. That's the point of negotiation. The hope is that you get to a point of agreement in the end.
Okay, well, when is this going to come to council for discussion?
That's a question I think probably between Jennifer and Nora. I know some of this would need to go to closed session, I assume, if not all of it.
Yes, this would need to go to closed session. I could tell you a lot of the work on the arbitration part has already been done, and we could probably take that into council pretty quickly. The other part about the IPA taking on police disciplines, that's something that we've been coordinating closely with Siobhan on. And there is discussions about potentially hiring a consultant to look at that and look at various options to bring forward. That could be a little bit longer time frame. But
Okay.
we can bring both into closed session and talk to the council about both and time frame and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
But
Yeah,
it would have to be as a labor negotiation. Yeah.
understood. Well, at least they'll be at the table if it's a negotiation, and that's why I'll support it. I have to say, Mayor, when I first started, I think you were there. We were not exactly on the same page with the POA, and there was a lot of hostility and a lot of things in the public weren't, it was a lot of things happening that shouldn't happen in a police force. But in any case, I don't want to go down that route, and I appreciate that this will be part of the negotiation process. So, thank you. I'll be supporting.
Thank you, Councilmember. Other questions or comments? Okay, let's vote then on the motion.
Thomas,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Arenas,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Ricardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
So I wanted, if I could, just to go back very briefly to an item that we just voted on a couple items ago, because there seems to be a discrepancy between what I believe, at least I'm told, the motion was in Councilmember Arenas' motion on the campaign finance regulations and what was restated to us by the city clerk. Now, so I just want to make sure we're clear and everybody's agrees on what the motion was, because it appears, I've got messages telling me that Councilmember Arenas made a motion for this to go to the council. And it was Tony who articulated that, I guess and that was after it had been restated, and that Tony instead said it was to go to the commission. So I wanted just to see if we could go back to this item 2, just to clarify. Councilman Arenas, was your motion to go to the council or to the commission?
Well, it was a little bit of both, because what I had said was that I didn't want the rules committee to decide on behalf of all of the council, that I think that we needed to have all of our colleagues contribute to this idea. In the meantime, I thought the study session, moving the study session forward so that so that we can understand a little bit more about those legal impacts that Councilmember Camus had brought up in his comments, I thought would be a really good use of our time. So I did ask for this to go in front of council so that we could discuss. Now, I don't know about the timing, whatever the timing, what I don't know. I guess I would leave it up to Lee and for them to decide what fits into our calendars. But I know that there was an opportunity in April to have a study session. But I think the conversation does need to first begin with the council and then continue with, now I'm going to get it wrong, the BFF commission.
I did it. I messed up their name.
You did it? No, you made it simple. You simplified it. To go to the commission so that they can then discuss it. And then what you're right that that this isn't complete, because then Vice Mayor Jones, you added a bit of a part of that, and that wasn't reflected in the motion. And so yeah, it did get a little.
Okay, so your understanding of your motion was that we go to the council first for a study session, then go to a commission, and then obviously come back to the council when things need to be voted on. Is that right?
Yes, and then Vice Mayor, you added the piece about having the Charter Review Commission look at integrating this.
The board.
Mess it up, but that
the board.
That board to be incorporated into the charter. That was the last piece.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so how I understood it and how it was restated for the motion was that it was going to go to the BFCPP first, then to study session.
Okay.
Then at the study session, it would then determine if you want to send it to charter review as well, to add it to the charter and to review whatever the BFCPP did.
Right.
You voted on, because that's what my understanding was.
Okay, so
that is incorrect. We need to make a motion.
Yeah, and I appreciate, Tony, obviously there's a lot of conversation going on back and forth. Given the discrepancy, I think the correct thing to do would be for us to vote on Councilmember Arenas' motion as she articulated it. Is that right?
Right.
Just
But I think
for
we
this
should do a
clarity.
motion we have to motion to reconsider it.
Okay.
So we need that right now.
All right.
Motion to reconsider.
Thank you. Okay, Camus,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Arenas,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Liccardo.
Aye. Okay. Now to Councilmember Arenas, for the motion that you just stated, should we simply, does everyone understand now what Councilmember Arenas' motion was? Inclusive of Vice Mayor's addition?
So I have the whole thing going to a council study session, which we will start earlier. And then at the study session, it could get referred to the commission.
Right.
And would come back to council for final decision.
And I'm perfectly fine with that, as long as it's going to council to make the determination.
Yeah, one way or another, it's going to get all of this.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Is that clear? Is that correct, Councilmember Arenas?
It is correct, but I had first stated that I wanted this all to first go to council. And so I guess this is not going to council. I guess we're deciding that it's going to take this path.
We have, I believe we have dates for study sessions in January. So we can schedule an early study session in January or February.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so okay with it, because it will go to council. So.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll figure out the timing soon enough, but the path is the council, then potentially a commission, obviously based on the council action, then probably back to council. Okay, so that's the motion. Let's vote on that.
And can we have that study session at this point? I apologize, just be a joint study session so that that board could also benefit from that conversation, if possible.
I can invite them. I can invite them to attend.
Yeah, we invite them to attend. I don't think they would have voting authority, but
sure.
Yeah. Councilor Davis?
Just a point of order. It's a special meeting, not a study session if we're going to be taking action.
Yeah, but we have some holds on study session dates. So we'll work with the attorney's office to make sure it's noticed so you can take an action.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are we clear? Any other questions before we revote here? Okay, let's vote on Councilmember Arenas'
Camus?
motion.
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Arenas?
Yes.
Jones?
Aye.
Liccardo?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for your patience. I see Joe has emerged from the ether. Welcome, Joe. I think that means it's probably time for, oh, wait a minute. Did we get to? Oh, yes, item 5, forgive me. I thought we were here for your monthly update, but we're not. Okay, the actions, item 5 is the actions related to city employee oversight and misconduct investigation. This is a memorandum from council members Arenas, Carrasco, and myself relating to code enforcement and the revelation of those awful crimes related to William Jerry. Joe, do you want to be heard on this one before we go to the public?
Sure. So there's 2 questions that are in the memo, and I want to take them up in reverse order, if that's okay. So
sure.
The second question about whether I view this as appropriate for an audit. So in terms of whether this is appropriate, I believe the objective that's described in the memo, that is an evaluation of oversight and management of code enforcement officials. That is an auditable subject and would be within our purview. So the charter outlines our duties, which includes performance audits, and according to section 805B in the charter, the focus of these may include a determination of the causes of inefficiencies or uneconomical practices, including inadequacies in internal administrative procedures, organizational structure, use of resources, allocation of personnel, and among other things. And so, you know, that sort of language, it makes it kind of fall right within our purview. However, if the question from council is more specific to the performance or conduct of the individual in question, for example, the memo does make reference to wanting a better understanding of how long the individual's conduct transpired, that may be more appropriate for an investigation under the city's charter section as cited in the memo. The focus of our work generally is on processes and systems and performance of work groups or departments. So we don't necessarily audit individuals. So that being said, I just want a bit more clarity.
Can clarify there? Because I think you're referring to what's in the comments section, not necessarily in the direction, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and the only point of that was to better understand how long this was going on. Not that you were going to be auditing the conduct of William Jerry, but how long should we have known that someone was out there using the veneer of official status to exploit other human beings? That was really the question. And presumably you would not be involved in investigation. You would rely on the investigation performed by the police.
Correct. So again, if we get back to that objective that's kind of described in the recommendation, evaluation of oversight and management of code enforcement officials, we could do that. In terms, the second question or the first question was in terms of reprioritization of our current work plan, and we do have a number of projects underway, and I wouldn't recommend we putting anything on hold. We do expect to release our third COVID-related audit memo related to housing grants in December. So we could begin some preliminary work on this project if council would like to add it to our work plan. The next project that was coming up was related to the city's CEQA process, which was added to our work plan in August. So that would be pushed back a couple of months. Probably we could start some preliminary work on that mid-February. And then other projects, including Beautify SJ programming and a few others, would just follow after that. So that was, my take or trying to answer those questions that you had in the memo, or that you and the two council members had in the memo.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joe. Let's go to the public now. All right, we don't have anyone raising their hand, so we'll come back to the committee. Councilor McCannis?
Yeah, well, so I understand. There's actually, this memo took me by surprise. I haven't heard about this, and well, I understand the need to look at procedure. I don't think that it's possible to root out bad actors 100%. I don't think that, somebody can always find ways to take advantage of their authority. And so I appreciate Joe being tasked to look at how we can improve procedures to mitigate that. But I want to be clear. I don't, just like anybody can have if there's a bad cop, there's a bad cop. If there's a bad firefighter, there's a bad firefighter. And so it's, I just want to be clear on that. I don't know if we can avoid, situations like this completely. So, but I am willing to support the effort of investigating how, procedurally I could see, maybe anybody who's been given a, anybody who's been, like a survey or something after somebody completes a inspection of some kind. I don't know, but or a hotline. But I just want to caution. I don't know that you could legislate stopping bad behavior, basically.
Anything further, Councilor McCannis?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Councilor Arenas?
Thank you, Mayor. I actually really appreciate that you brought this forward and that you've asked for this audit from our auditor's office. I wanted to just bring something else to light and see how this might have, if there's any interface between the work that was being done under our priority setting direction, which I think Councilmember Perales had moved forward, and that was to shut down, bring closure to a lot of the illicit massage parlors. And those were primarily happening in 2018. I wonder how, if any role this code inspector had in maybe delaying some of those closures. And I don't know if they had any role, but I know that there was at least 100, if not 150 massage parlors closed that year. We have about 18 that only have permits and that are allowed to function as massage parlors. And I don't know that we have any additional permits that we've given for massage parlors. So I just wanted to see if this particular code inspector, or maybe the department, I don't know, I don't want to just point to this particular person. Maybe there was somebody else working with this other person in the code inspector department. But if in fact maybe this person also took part in delaying some of those closures for those illicit massage parlors, maybe contributing to the difficulty that we had in closing those massage parlors. I wanted to know if they had any role. I don't know if that could be determined through your particular auditing services, but it would be interesting to see those two things kind of overlay and see if there was any interruptions in our operations, in our police operations due to this person.
Hey, Councilmember Ranks, would you like to incorporate that as part of the motion?
That would be, actually, I was just going to say, yes, you read my mind. I was going to make a motion and yes, and include that into the direction.
Second.
And I would just say, I think part of that might not be part of the audit, but part of the actual police investigation,
right?
That is continuing, but we can, as an administration, bring that forward and collaborate with Joe on that. But that probably would be outside of the audit, is my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're looking to hire Joe as the investigator. Yeah. We just want him to rely on the investigations of the DA and SJPD and tell us what that should tell us about how we're managing. Okay. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. You do have one person who has their hand raised.
Okay.
I'm happy to make my comments after that.
Sure, thank you. Scott Largent, welcome.
Great. Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, great. Thank you. William Gary, when I read the article about code enforcement, you know, I dealt with code enforcement about 5 years ago. I was able to figure out how they were also tipping off the tow companies in regards to complaints that people are filing with code enforcement. And I found that was very shady. You submit a complaint and then they send it right over. They let them cover everything up and then they send it back to the city and nothing's ever done. I did deal with William Gary years back. It bounced back and forth from the code enforcement at the police department to code enforcement at the city. And you guys know that big mess. You just listened to me for years, yap about it. I was hoping maybe we could put like a public service announcement out and maybe ask other people that were affected by this man at some of these businesses, massage parlors, anything involving code enforcement. I would think that would be a good idea. I've also been doing some research into several other San Jose police officers right now. We did have Officer John Tompkins. He did arrest me out in front of the PD. Officer Tompkins was the one that was basically the drug dealer for the San Jose Police Department. He got busted with firearms, you know, bullets that he shouldn't have had. 29 firearms, I believe, is what they took off of him. I pulled the Sunnyvale investigative reports on this guy, and I started going through all this stuff, and it is absolutely shocking what this man was doing for 20 years at the San Jose Police Department. Are people looking into this, or is this just being buried? The person, his co-conspirator that led them to Officer John Tompkins, he was bailed from the Santa Clara County Jail on Christmas. Somebody went and spent $150,000 cash to bail him out. He was found dead in San Mateo in May in a hotel room with a needle in his arm. Okay. This guy's a long time snitch for the San Jose Police Department. I would just hope somebody would look into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Largent. Mr. Largent, if you could please do me a favor and reach out to my office. My email is sam.licardo@sanjoseca.gov. Thank you. All right, let's turn to the committee. Councilor Davis. I'm sorry, Councilor Camus, forgive me. Oh wait, Councilor Camus, I think we talked. We already called on you.
I already spoke.
Yeah. right? Councilmember Davis, thank you. I think your blue hand was still up there. Councilmember Davis?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sensitive to what Councilmember Camus said about not being able to, legislate all good behavior, but I do think, I was appalled and disgusted when I read about this code enforcement inspector or official, and I think that we have a responsibility to our residents, our business owners, and frankly our other employees to make sure that we have the proper procedures and oversight in place to minimize this and prevent as much of this from happening as we can. Of course we can't prevent everything, but we definitely we need to make sure that there are protocols in place to ensure that this doesn't happen again to the extent that we are able. So that's why I'm very glad that you brought this forward, Mayor and Councilmember Arenas and Councilmember Carrasco.
Thank you. Anything further? All right, then on Councilmember Arenas' motion, let's vote.
Could I ask one piece of clarification?
Yeah,
Joe. Based on Councilmember Arenas' comments, and then your comments about relying on the DA or the police department to conclude their investigation, I guess I just wanted clarity again, because I'm assuming my work would be, our office's work would be kind of done concurrently with that investigation, which could take quite some time. And so,
yeah, Joe, I don't know whether they took Jerry to his case to the grand jury or they simply filed an information. But I would just assume that your work would depend on the investigation that has happened. If they've already announced an arrest, it tells me that, I mean, there may be additional investigation, but basically the bulk of it is in a police report or a series of reports that hopefully you'd be able to get access to. But obviously, if you have problems with getting access to the basic reports, yeah, I understand. You'd have to wait, but
we would have to. So I think that the basics, as Councilmember Davis described, looking at the protocols and what, like I said, what was described in the memo is something we can definitely move forward on. And then we'll just have to figure out how we kind of handle that other piece in terms of kind of the information that's occurring through the investigations. And we also work with Nora and the attorneys on that piece as well, trying to figure out exactly how we can kind of handle that piece, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thanks, Joe. I mean, like 95% of the cases I was involved with as a DA, that the investigation was more or less done once it was time to charge and arrest. So
okay.
I think you'll have a pretty complete record. There may be some more out there, but I think we just more than anything want to know who should have known what when.
Okay.
Councilmember Hens.
That's helpful.
It just jogged my memory that the task force that was actually closing these illegal massage parlors had the district attorney, a code inspector, and of course somebody from Vice involved. And so that was kind of the core team. And this is why I was concerned that maybe there was some delay on their part. And then one of the things that I actually added during the PISFIS committee was I added an advocate that would go on to some of the on-site closures. But a lot of these closures, Joe, were administratively done. And so you probably will just find a letter that asks for those property owners to close it, and they did that that way. But I would be concerned about the active cases that they pursued, that they had some operations on site. Anyways, I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Okay. Let's vote then on the motion.
Camus?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Arenas?
Yes.
Jones?
Aye.
Liccardo?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Okay, H1 is Community Economic Development Committee, update to their work plan. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Beekman?
Hi, yeah.
On this side?
Yeah, I wanted to speak on the CED work plan that it will be addressing housing issues into next year. And I just wanted to make this the time to remind yourselves that, you know, the previous practices of the past few years have brought us to where we're at now with what sounds like some interesting new ideas in very low and extremely low income housing ideas. You know, now is the time that we start to consider, you know, there's a next generation, you know, with all the issues of defund that is starting to develop really interesting ideas of new housing. You know, in Fremont, the cities of Fremont and Redwood City are interested themselves in how to better develop such ideas at this time. CASA, Housing Advocacy, they've the past few years, they've been on top of all of this, and I really count on them in these upcoming CED reports about housing. And you know, the middle income ideas, you know, good luck in those efforts. But my major concern is how do we talk about the future of very low, extremely low, and mixed income that I feel, you know, the zoning questions that have been a big fight, you know, during the election year, I think can really be answered by mixed income ideas and to explore that. And that's what our next few years can be about. And some really interesting things should appear, as interesting things are appearing now from the work of CASA basically a few years ago. So good luck in all your efforts and what we can all help. And always listen to the community, to community advice. They're really good with good community advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Largent?
Thank you. I just noticed it said open forum and then it backspace and it said CED. So I think I don't think I'm on the right one right now.
Yeah, we'll get to you just after this one.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay. On this motion, anything from the committee? Let's vote.
Aye.
Camus, thank you.
Aye.
David, oh, she's gone. Arenas?
Yes.
Jones?
Aye.
Liccardo?
Aye.
You threw me
Okay,
off.
now to open now to open forum. Mr. Largent?
Okay, thank you, everybody. Scott Largent. A lot of this research that I've done, I'm not the enemy. One of these days, everybody on this this panel will understand that it's the bad apples that are in our police department, the bad actors that need to be disciplined and fired and basically removed from our department. A lot of these ones are involved in all the different cases that I have, and especially Officer John Tompkins. I have a couple reports, and I would like to provide this to you, Mayor Liccardo. And I was able to pull all this from the court files. And since you were a prosecutor, you're very familiar with what I'm doing over there. I go into the file viewing room and I look up different officers. I look up co-conspirators. I do my research, and then I start pulling these reports. Even if it's sealed for one of the officers, I'm able to pull a co-conspirator. I'm able to pull their police report. Then I'm able to find the officer's report. You guys will be able to do the same thing with this code inspector. That's a big problem. I'm going to go down there tomorrow. I'm going to start pulling his files, police reports, all that other good stuff, which I think you guys really need to have. Now, this Officer Tompkins right here, the stuff that I was reading on here, the amount of drugs that he was taking off of criminals in our community, and he was reselling them. And he even had discounted wholesale rates if you spent over $1,500 a day. He was actually mixing and manufacturing date rape drugs and ketamine, and it's just shocking. And I went through here a little more. The 9 firearms was very weird. The fact that he had altered shotguns to fire machine gun rounds, I just thought that was twisted. And half of these drugs I have never heard of any of this stuff. I mean, he calls it Dr. Seuss, nasal things. He has all these prices. They put all of his text messages in here. It's shocking. I have it in hard copy. I need to put this onto a drive, but I want you guys to see what I've been researching. It'll just make you better politicians. It really.
Thank you, sir. If you could send again the email to me at sam.licardo@sanjoseca.gov. We'll be in contact. Mr. Beekman.
Hi, thank you. I hope you can have patience with myself. It was a heavy meeting at the end, and I have a few heavy words I'll hopefully be responsible with at this time. As it seems we may be headed towards a lame duck presidency, a reminder the current president, Donald Trump, just fired a very decent-minded defense secretary. I think it really needs to be noted by local government bureaucracies at this time that fairly large catastrophic events locally, nationally, and internationally of the past 20 years often take place within the early transition and change of a presidential administration. With this in mind, the work I've been doing with accountability, it really is asking, what can be better bureaucratic practices and what can be, just better open communication between, both bureaucracy and community. And, the items of the local community energy yesterday, I mean, they were really flat. What you're developing, and there was a public speaker yesterday on local community energy items that he offered something is not too hopeful in our future, which just reminded me that for COVID happening, the events of 9/11 happening, for the economic meltdown of 2008 happening, there's always an event on the horizon that is a major catastrophe. And it's very possible that in the next 10 years, we may have a major earthquake in the Bay Area. So, you guys may not be totally thrilled to be wanting to work on community energy stuff and talking about positive sustainability, but it's practicing those things now that I think we're learning out of COVID that will have us well prepared for when the next disaster happens. And so I hope we can learn to be excited for our positive sustainability ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.